Hello. Hi everyone. Welcome to Guiding Voice podcast series. The Guiding Voice for a better future. This podcast is to help students and young professionals to shape their careers. Thank you for tuning in. This is Naveen and I will be your solo host for today as Sudhakar couldn't join us. I'm sure you guys will be missing him. So India is home to one of the biggest hubs of writers. And there are many aspiring writers. In today's episode, we would like to cover a very useful topic on analytics for writers by the author of Heir, End of Innocence, Naseha. Naseha Sameen has 13 plus years of professional experience and is currently working as WFM and Business Analytics Manager with Smart Drive. Prior to that, she worked with companies like Fidelity Information Services, American Express, Yatra Online, 7 Solutions, and Fair Portal. Coming to her education, she has done her BSc from Utkal University and MA in Public Administration from Andhra University. She is a certified Lean Six Sigma Blackbelt and DOE Level A certified. Coming to her writing, she has authored 2 books, the Amazon bestseller Ruby Drops and Heir, End of Innocence, and she has also co-authored 4 more books. Naseha, welcome to our show and let us get into our conversation.
Thank you, Naveen, for such a wonderful introduction.
It's my pleasure, Naseha. Let's talk about some basics. You have been in this professional world for 13 plus years. So what made you think about writing a book?
So writing was more of a hobby and it was there since I was a kid. If I remember correctly, the first story that I wrote was when I was nursery, when I absolutely had no sense of punctuation and spellings. And my mom gave it to somebody to edit so that, she could share it in some magazine or something. I don't know what happened to that. In standard 7th, I wrote a novella, Rubaisha. But then I never had that much of courage to share it with anybody. I had absolutely no confidence. The only person who knew that I wrote on my weekends was my mother. Others thought I'm doing my homework. I was very much afraid that people would laugh at my work, at my errors, and growing up in a small city like Cuttack in 1990s meant that you would have a lot of bullies around you who would just try to make fun of everything. So that ways I never thought that I could ever enter the line of writing, and I kept all my writings hidden so that nobody would read it and make fun of me. But then, as they say, life goes in a different direction. And I met Alok, who is still a great believer in me as a writer. We started a career in Gurgaon and we got into quality side, business analytics side. But same time, every weekend, we kept time aside for writing. But only in 2015, I could gather courage to publish an anthology of poetries dealing with anxiety, loneliness and depression about mental health called Ruby Drops. After that, 2019, my book Heir got picked up by Invincible Publications. And they have planned to release it as 2-part novel. So first part is Heir, End of Innocence. The second part, which was planned to be released in 2020, but due to this pandemic, we are holding it back because it's not a very happy time. So that is Heir, Dawn of Deception. That would be hopefully 2021 first quarter. As soon as the vaccines hit the market, we would release it.
Yep. Sure. So first of all, I would like to congratulate you on starting your writing journey as early as in nursery. I think there are very few people who would have the courage to write a book and also idea of writing a book. So came across some interesting thought and also hearty congratulations on the launch of your book, which is again rated as a Amazon bestseller, Heir, the End of Innocence, and all the very best on the part 2, right?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about your book, Heir, End of Innocence?
Air End of Innocence, as I said, is a 2-part series, and it's an erotic political thriller set in India 50th century, and it deals with power struggle, insurgency, blood feuds that's going on in two kingdoms, Garhpundir and Jodhgarh, since last 4 generations. It's the story of a journey of a young princess, Padma Kishori, who's 16 years old. From being a naive girl who had all her dreams and which was brutally shattered because she had to marry a person who was older than her father just for political alliance. So it's her journey through all the political turmoils and through the conspiracies that was brewing in all these kingdoms to finally stand up and get what she wanted from life. And choosing that path was more of being a queen. She was devoid of all the humanly pleasures that was associated with any life or any marriage or even a romantic angle to it. But she is one person who said that no, agreed, I followed every rule in the rule book, but now I cannot have people snatch away my happiness. And then the second part of the book is all about how she's trying to get what she wants. And that's the second part is all about, will she get it and at what cost, and will she be killed for the treason? So that's all the conspiracies and politics that is happening in these two kingdoms.
Yeah, this seems to be a fascinating storyline, and I can't wait to grab a copy of part 2 as well. So once it is released. As mentioned in the introduction, we have many people aspiring to become a writer and start their writing journey. So what should someone aspiring to write a book focus on?
The first thing a person should focus on is character building along with the story flow and the arc of the story. These three things should complement each other. There should not be any loopholes in any of three things. If the character should be in line with the story arc. Otherwise, it's very irritating for any reader to understand why this character is behaving in such a way. Second, and the most important part is the research. What comes in the story is only 1 or 2% of the research. But you have to know everything about that character, including the character's hobby, where the character stays, and what is the geographical, political, sociological scenario of that place. So you need to have all that detailing in your mind or somewhere written, and then only you can put in a very strong character in a story arc. Can you imagine a character wearing lycra in 1952?
Not at all.
That is, lycra was found out in 1953. So you can't have your character wearing lycra in 1952. Yeah. So these are few things that person has to be very careful about.
Sure, I think that is pretty insightful. Now, can we talk a little bit about writer analytics and how can this analytics help someone in choosing the topics or finalizing the genre of a book, etc.?
So analytics, as you know, in any content writing and especially in websites, this kind of analytics is very much helpful, which is like heat maps, clicks, keyword search. So that's a different analytics that is used in writing. Another piece of analytics that is used in writing is what we call, there are 10 or 12 different analytics that we use. These are more from readability point of view. Whether your story is right, how much of like target audience. Analytics helps in understanding if your writing is right for your target audience, and accordingly you change your style a bit. These analytical tools that is used are more of readability indicators as flesh, KINCAD, reading ease and grade level. There is a score associated and grade is given. Higher the score, better. And it tells about how easy it is to read a particular passage or a book. So academic and scientific texts are generally from 10 to 14 range. And most of the fiction fall around 6 and 7. And dialogues are at 4 to 6. Now second is gunning fog score. Now this index is commonly used to confirm if text can be easily read by a targeted audience. Grading is in form of text for a wider audience that index is 12. And as it comes down, like 9 is school freshman, 8 is 8th grade. So it helps you to understand how complex your writing is. Let's come directly to small grade, which measures the readability, that estimates the education required to understand that piece of writing. One more is automated readability index, which is ARI. Now, this is interesting because this index is designed to measure how easily your text could be understood in first reading. These are different kind of analytic tools and analysis that helps to understand how, if our writing is very complex, if it is matching to our target audience, and what could we do better with this.
Yeah, I think this is quite interesting, and I, being the novice, I would say, or pretty naive to this writing and all, this is a kind of fascinating and at the same time eye-opener for me. I didn't knew that this kind of details are existing. So definitely, I'm sure most of our listeners might have also come across these details for the first time. But would you be able to elaborate any two of them so that it will be helpful to understand how the calculations happen and what should we look for?
Okay, so let me first take an example of Flesch-Kincaid readability. This is one of the most commonly used tool, and it was developed by Rudolf Flesch and Peter Kincaid. The way the scoring is, it's based on the ranking 0 to 100. Higher you score, better your writing is. It means it's more readable. This technique, Flesch-Kincaid readability, it has two parts to it. First is the score and then is the grade. And it was developed by Rudolf Flesch and Peter Kincaid. So, basis on the ranking is from 0 to 100. The higher your score is, that means your book or your writing is more readable. Calculate how many words you have in a sentence on an average and how complicated all those words are by taking the syllabus divided by words. So that gives you a readability index. I know it's a little geek thing. Now, how do you calculate the grade? Formula is 0.39 into words by sentences plus 11.8 into syllabus divided by words minus 15.58. So that gives you approximately which grade of or which class a student can read that. So if it comes as 6, that means any person with grade 6 or 6 standard, as we say in India, can read this book. And second is, it's slightly different concept, that's why I chose this, ARI, which is derived from ratio that represents difficult words and sentence difficulty. The previous one was more into words and sentences and syllabus. This has difficult sentences and number. The score is calculated in that way. If your work has letters which is 10, generally people write 5-6 digit words. But if your writing has 7, 10, 8, that number increases. So the readability score consists of two factors. First, relates to the sentence structure, typically measuring average number of words per sentences. And then readability index, which also takes into the account of word structure and are generally based on average number of syllable per word on proportion. So that way, easy word and hard word is calculated. So for ARI, the formula is 4.71 into character divided by word plus 0.5 into, again, word divided by number of words divided by number of sentences minus 21.43.
That's a lot of mathematics and
of mathematics. So it's a lot of tools are available, so you can use them, and otherwise you can put your word in some Excel and do this calculation like we do.
Interesting, Naseha. So when should one use them? Like, should it come before writing?
No, because when you are writing, until unless you write, there is a sample. You can't do any analysis without a sample. So your first draft, you should create it. And then you use these tools. Because during the plotting of the book or story arc, you already know what is your target audience. And after that, once your first draft is ready, you create it and you see that. You see where your writing falls. If your audience is at grade 3 and your work is at...
Naseha, will these tools or analytics give us an insight on how the writing has changed in the last few years or probably decades? And how are the bestsellers ranked? And where does your book Heir stand at?
I'll give you an example of a number of words per sentences. That's the first indicator as how the writing has evolved or has changed during the years.
Okay.
Can you guess what is the number of words per sentence in Sense and Sensibility?
Could be 20.
Very close to it. It is 23.2. Now, Tales of Two Cities is 17.7. Hobbit is 16.3. Harry Potter's Philosopher's Stone is 11.9. And can you guess? Twilight series is at 9.6.
Wow.
And where does Heir come in? So, Heir is somewhere between Harry Potter and Twilight. It is 11.5. Very close to Harry Potter. And let me give you the reading ease and the score of few writers.
Okay.
Hemingway, amazing writer and most widely read. 93 is his reading score and the grade is 4.1. That when we say 4.1 doesn't mean that only people at 4th grade should read or 5th grade should read.
Okay.
It means person from 4th standard onwards can read it. And Susan Collins 86 and readability is 5 grade is 5.2. And our dear E.L. James is 86 but the reading grade is 3.7. My favorite J.K. Rowling 78 and grade is 6.8. Jane Austen 82, grade as 5.6. Stephanie Meyers 82, grade 6.2. James Patterson 72 and the grade is 7.9. Tolstoy 70, I know he is very complex and the grade is 8.2. Heir comes in between E.L. James and J.K. Rowling at 80 and readability at 5.0.
Wow. That's great. And again, as I mentioned, it is a lot of statistics.
Lot.
So excellent research you have done in the past 1-2 years. And now slightly shifting our gears and let's talk a little bit about your favorite books in the self-help category.
I'll be very honest. I don't like reading self-help and I get very excited and buy them and hardly I can complete 5 to 10 pages and then I just stop it because I find motivational and self-help mostly from fantasy fiction. Be it Harry Potter or Bartimaeus trilogy, Pellinor series, the messages in these books are better than any self-help book because they show what a person can do. But self-help books is more like preaching, telling us what to do, which somewhere all of us know what we should be doing. Fiction, on the other hand, shows us what needs to be done. So that's why, whenever I need any kind of motivation, I pick any fantasy book, go to a random page, read 5 or 6 pages from there and bam, it's all there. The only self-help book that I have completed is Ikigai.
Yeah, Ikigai is very small, thin book and probably that could be the reason.
And it is a complete different self-help than most of the self-help that we see is like you should first change your thought process and do. Ikigai says, do what you have to do. So it's a complete different psychological as the way they have approached it is different. That's why I like.
Yep, again quite interesting. Like you get motivated by reading fantasy fiction books and all. So very interesting stuff. Who is your favorite author and why?
Among George R.R. Martin, Haruki Murakami, Dan Brown and J.R. Rowling, my favorite is Alison Croggon. Her Pellinor series is amazing. Reading that, I felt that she is J.R.R. Tolkien's of today. Her book has that kind of style, flair of old classics. And very honestly, her book does not have short and simple sentences just showing us what is happening in the scene. She builds up layers of metaphors, builds in sense of adventure and distract. And you can feel it while reading it. Somehow I find her book very inspiring also and relaxing at the same time because she sets the stage connects the character of the fantasy world to our world, and literally she takes you to a different planet altogether. She's a time machine creator for me. My greatest wish is one day I wish I could meet her and get a chance to work with her at least even for a day. Recently, I connected with her on Twitter and asked her, can you tell me if Pelinor series is ever going to come on Netflix or anything? She said, I wish. It requires a lot of funding. That's amazing book. Yeah. And reading it, you'll feel it is one branch of, not one branch, but the style of it's similar style of Lord of the Rings.
I wish you get a chance to meet her, and I sincerely pray for it. So overall, it was amazing stuff that you shared with me and our audience today. So thank you so much, Naseha, for joining today's episode. Indeed, it was a very wonderful and insightful conversation around analytics for writers.
Thank you so much, Naveen. Pleasure is all mine.
Thank you, Naseha. Dear listeners, to know more about the speaker or our solo books, Ruby Drops and Heir, End of Innocence, or you can visit her website www.naseha.world or any of her social media handles. So you can find them in the episode description, and you can visit or follow us on social media. We are available on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. And you can also feel free to email us, and we will be happy to share further details with you. Alright, so it brings us to the trivia segment of today's episode. And since we had a very great conversation about books and writing with Naseha, we thought we will present you some trivia related to a book. You know, Bill Gates is said to have paid $30.8 million for a copy of a book by Leonardo da Vinci. Can you guess the name of the book? Okay, it is nothing but Codex Leicester. And it is the most expensive book sold ever in the history. So only Bill Gates could afford it. And he has a flair for reading, so he's able to do it. Interesting, isn't it? Alright, so thank you for listening. Have a wonderful time. Take care and be safe. Until next time, bye-bye.